what do you do when you've been laid off? You talk about a
Mm.
brag folder.
A lot of us can't remember what we had for dinner last week. How are we going to be able to talk confidently about what we've accomplished in our jobs? So when we go to get that raise, we can talk about the stuff that we've done that is exemplary. The best way to remember it is to keep a brag folder.
All right, Heal Squad, we are back with part two of our conversation with financial journalist and author Alison Kosik. If you guys missed part one, do yourself a favor and check it out. It's packed with actionable steps on securing your financial future. Today, Allison and I are diving into even more must-know money moves, including how to navigate your finances after a natural disaster, outsmarting the car salesman. That was a funny one. And her number one way to set yourself up for your next career move. Enjoy, friends. When we're seeing as many natural disasters as we are seeing, and I feel like every other day it's a
I know, right?
hurricane, a fire, an earthquake, a tornado. You're seeing what's happening in Greece right now. There's just
Oh, I
so
know.
much. So I want to get into a little bit about what are the steps that we need to take. What do you do when you are afraid of a natural disaster coming to your area? And then, of course, what do you do when you have been the victim of a natural disaster? So,
Okay,
let's talk about preventative and post. So, what do you do
yeah.
before a natural disaster hits, and what do you do after a natural disaster hits?
So I put together a few so 5 to 6 things you can do before. And I mean, obviously you do your emergency kit and all that. This is in addition to that. I think the main thing and what we learned out of the wildfires in California is your firebox really isn't good enough anymore.
What
Who knew
does
what
that
the
mean?
so, I mean, there are stories that I read of people who went to their properties that were burned down, and they went and saw their firebox sitting on the property, and they opened it up, and everything was burnt inside.
The
So
safes.
there are, yes, there are some fireboxes that aren't safes, and maybe it was one of those.
Oh.
But I'm not saying don't do that. Here's my advice: scan all of your important documents, whether it's your deed, your passport, your license, your just anything that would be paper. If you have to take pictures of it, take pictures of it and put the folder and make the folders in your Google Drive and make a digital record of it. So it's always somewhere in your computer.
And
So
then
even if you
have
went to a,
two more
and then,
copies of it because
yes, and
my
then
tech guy says
exactly.
you have to have things live in three places.
Yes, and that was my next part is in addition to having a digital copy, that you've scanned already and you put those documents on into the cloud. Also, put them on a thumb drive or a hard drive. Put those in a firebox. I would buy a really good after seeing what happened in California. Don't cheap out on the firebox, people. Get a really good firebox.
Yeah.
I have to admit, my firebox in my house is cheap. I need to go out and buy a better one because I thought, oh, all fireboxes are equal, or I don't think they are after seeing what happened there. And this goes for photos as well, or kids' artwork. Have a digital version. Also put them on, a digital version to put them in the cloud, and also put them on the thumb drives and the hard drives that you put in your firebox. Also, open up a vault at your bank, a safety deposit box. Have a copy in there. Hopefully, the bank won't burn down, but in one of these three things, in my opinion, should survive. If anything else than the stuff you have in the cloud.
That was one thing I did hear is that the safe deposit boxes in the bank are not safe from fire. And I was like,
Right.
wait, I have a safe deposit box for that reason. And when the
Yeah.
fires were coming closer, I'm like, oh my God, like what if all of our documents are
Right.
gone?
Well, then hopefully you have one saved, have your documents saved in the cloud. And even if your computer burned up, you can go buy a new computer, log into your Google, and have your digital documents sitting there in the
Yeah.
cloud. So
And those will
that's
suffice.
they'd have to. It's better than nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
they're documents, they're pictures of documents. At least it's something to go on. I'm not really sure about as far as what's
How do
sort of
you prove
considered,
all that?
yeah, but at least you've got a starting point. It's better than having nothing. Um, so there you go. So that's the first thing. Secondly is I would have an emergency savings account. We go back to this emergency savings account. I love this emergency savings account, but 9 to 12 months of living expenses saved up, ready for something to happen in your life where you need to tap into it. Third of all, and you mentioned this is, review, and this is doing all this stuff, by the way, is before the panic, is before the natural disaster comes, is to do it now when there's no crisis. Review your homeowner's insurance, review your car insurance, review all your insurances. We should be doing this when we renew our insurances, but most of us don't. We're in a rush. Who wants to read through that whole policy? But you have to. You can actually put the policy paragraphs into Chat GPT to sort of translate it for you. So you can do that too. Or just call them up and say, I don't understand this, explain this in plain language. Because you don't want to have your aha moment after the natural disaster, realizing you're either uninsured or underinsured at that moment.
Well, here's the other thing why you want that. If I can jump in,
Of
you
course.
need to know when something's happening, what you're covered for because of your own
Yeah.
anxiety and your prophesizing after that. So even health wise, like I remember being like, oh, well, what happens? I get scared of like a flight. Like, oh my God, am I going to get my money back if I miss the flight? Like I just am starting to really understand even that, which is stupid. I know, but
No, it's not
oh, I'm
stupid.
going to get a credit for the flight. Because before I'd be like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And so it's to prevent the further stress that you're going to have wondering, am I covered? What am I covered for? Like I remember when the fires were about to jump into the valley and our house was in danger and they evacuated.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, um, you have to take video and photos of everything in your
Right.
house with certain policies to get your property back. So
Yeah.
I had done that once before when I thought we were going to have an issue, and then I had someone redo it just before they left and I was evacuated. I'm like, please, like, because I wasn't there. I'm like, someone had to go grab a few things. I said, take a video of everything, just go through the whole property. And so there are things like that that you need to know. And then there are things that may be valuable you have to add to your insurance policy to be covered.
And that's the point of going over your policy to make sure, because things have changed in that year since you last renewed and hopefully looked at your policy.
Yeah.
And you have to add that. And then there's the part that you mentioned about your housekeeper, that if you've owned your home for a while, there's a good chance that you're underinsured because the cost to replace your home has climbed over the past few years. We've seen inflation. And
Mhm.
then you want to make sure that you have the right insurance amount for the newly assessed home.
Yeah.
It's
Or
really
if you've done
important.
work on it.
Exactly, yes. Or here's another thing that people may not realize is that if your home's in a trust, you're going to want to make sure your insurance policy for your home is updated to reflect that the policy itself needs to list the trust as the owner of the home so you can make that claims process go easier. And so some people put their home in the trust, but don't tell the insurance they did that. And the insurance is still in their name and it's not in the name of the trust. So you have to make sure you notify your insurer. You can name the trust you can also name the trust as an additional insured or, in addition to the named insured. That's important too.
Super smart. What else can we do preventatively?
So yeah, we talked about the emergency savings. I also think it's important to have a little cash on hand. Um, you know, what if what if you can't get anything out of the ATM and you need cash and your credit cards aren't working? So I think in case everything goes down, have some cash on hand. I remember this during Hurricane Katrina. Some places credit cards weren't going through, so have some cash on hand. The other thing was, yes, take a detailed inventory of your belongings. You mentioned that. Walking through your house, literally just taking your phone, videoing everything, and upload it to the cloud. Put it on a hard drive. That's really important. I think having a family meeting point and a communication strategy is key because when you're panicked, you need to know, where everybody's going to meet up. Because if cell phones don't work, I know
Hmm.
during 9/11, I was in DC, cell phones didn't work and I couldn't find out anything. So,
Yeah.
you need a meeting point. And then also one thing to keep in mind, depending on how much heads up you have about a natural disaster coming, um, know how to shut off all the utilities in your home, your water, your gas, your electricity at the main source of your home. It could either be inside your home or outside. I saw a poll that showed that that if for people under the age of 25, not many people know how to shut off these things in their home. So it's not that we're stupid, we just don't pay attention to it.
I
So
don't
one,
either.
yeah, I mean, and I actually mentioned some of this stuff in my book because it was one of the things that I didn't know either until I had to be the lady of the house. So we need to know how to do that stuff before, so you're not panicky and you do it safely. So that's the main thing. If you're going to shut the gas off, you want to follow the utilities instructions carefully, but you want to know how to do it ahead of time. So like let's say you want to be able to shut off the electricity in your home if you've experienced flooding. I think you've experienced flooding before. I remember
Hmm.
the video on Instagram, but you
Yeah.
want to know how to shut off the
Which
electricity.
which is why I should know how to shut the pipes off too, but I don't. And now I wrote myself a note that I have to make sure my dad teaches me that today.
Yeah, your water shut off valve, Maria, is either in your basement or in the garage.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you want to know
Um,
how to shut off. So those were just some of the things I put together as things to do before a natural disaster comes. And yeah.
and what about post? Say, unfortunately, you were a victim of a natural disaster. What are some of the resources that are out there? And what are some of the things? I mean, I know you even mentioned like trees can be covered, which I never would have expected, but I have a lot of trees, so that would be very helpful.
I think
Um,
I think the first thing you do after a natural disaster is call your insurance company. Hopefully you will have you will know what your insurance covers, but you want to definitely just make a claim as soon as possible, depending on whatever damage. And if it's the kind of natural disaster that calls for a state of emergency being declared, like what happened with the wildfires, your insurance company is actually required to immediately pay you a minimum of 1/3 of the estimated value of your personal belongings, called contents, in your policy, plus a minimum of 4 months worth rent for the local area in which you live. So if you have a McMansion, they have to pay you 4 months worth of rent in commensurate with how you live now. And by the way, these payments,
wow.
the third of it, the estimated value of your personal belongings and the 4 months worth of rent, those payments are required whether an adjuster has come to your home to inspect it or not. That now this is all if there was a state of emergency declared in your state.
So that's why they declare state of emergencies. Didn't know that. But now,
Yeah.
how does that number get determined? Do you just throw a number out?
Um, your
Hold that
person,
thought.
well,
We're going to talk about the people who help us keep the lights on, friends. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Bet I think I'm funny sometimes. Between juggling work, life, being a mom, and all the little things in between, I am officially dreaming of a change of scenery and a quick winter family getaway. Sounds really good right about now. So I've decided to take a mini winter vacation with Kevin and Athena. But before I start packing, I'm going to need to make a stop at Macy's because they've got all the chilly adventure essentials like cozy Columbia jackets, Ugg boots, and so much more to stay toasty and stylish. And if you're chasing warmer weather, definitely stock up on um, resort wear, swimsuits, breezy dresses. I do think actually we need one of those too, but whatever. Sandals from Nike, Adore Me, Mango, Free People, my favorite. Don't forget your travel beauty essentials and the perfect luggage to keep you organized on the go. No matter your destination, Macy's has you covered, friends. So whether you're headed to the mountains for a ski trip or escaping to the beach for some sun and waves, Macy's has got you in every category. So if you guys need a little inspo, you can head to the link with all my travel must-haves in my Macy's wish list. You can check it out in the podcast description below. Shop now at Macy's in-store or online at Macy's.com and get travel ready. Okay, let's pick it up where we left off. I'm now just dreaming about my vacations and not thinking
I'm dreaming
about
with
what we
you.
were talking about. Oh man.
So in your policy, you have the personal contents that you've insured. So when you make your insurance, your homeowner's insurance policy, you estimate what the contents are. They usually help you do that. And so whatever a third is of that value, it should be in your policy.
Well,
It won't
that
spell out
needs
the
to be
third.
updated. That
Yeah.
I haven't added anything in years.
See, that's what I mean. When your renewal came to update your homeowner's insurance, you just sign it.
Yeah. Wait, so what is that called?
That is the contents. They call it the contents or the value of your personal belongings or contents.
Got it. I'm checking that
I see your
immediately.
writing.
Oh yeah, I take notes. I take
I
notes.
like
This show
that.
is for me too.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, well, that's really helpful. What else can you do post? What are things that people just don't think about because they're so overwhelmed and they're so stressed and they're devastated?
I think, look for if it's devastation, I feel like it would be declared a disaster at this point, like a state of emergency. And I feel like that there would be resources available. FEMA can give out some money. There are assistance centers often set up for people to maybe get new copies of documents, like passports and driver's licenses. I think if you lost those things, I would work on getting new copies of those, of the birth and death and marriage certificates, that kind of thing. And I know that, and I just want to acknowledge that it's really hard to afford insurance these days, especially in California, especially in Florida, to get flood insurance, to get fire insurance, and it's important to acknowledge that we're talking, all this is for people who have insurance. And if you don't have insurance, there's no clear path. It's very difficult to recover. And yeah, there's FEMA support available, but the reality is it's not going to be enough to bring back your house. And hopefully you can piece together some resources and see where that takes you. But I think in the end, I think the main thing goes back to not just saving your money. And it's great to have an emergency savings account. It is just a portion of your overall financial portfolio. You need to invest your money because of that magic word called compounding. And if you have money invested that is compounding, that is working for you, um, compounding is your best friend, then you're gonna feel. I mean, I don't know. I've never been through a disaster that California's been through, but you're going to feel a little better. I would assume so. Just a little better, just because you'll have money saved up that is working for you, that is building.
You said something earlier, and I think it's going to be the title of your next book,
What is it? What is it, Maria? Because
Lady
I
of
don't.
the House.
Ah.
I'm serious, Lady of the House, because it all seems so scary when you're in partnership and now you are not. You now have to do things that you were never doing before. I want to know how your life has changed. And I'm hoping for the better. I'm hoping that you've been empowered by, doing all these new things that you haven't done before. But I don't know. You can tell us it's a nightmare and then, we'll deal with it. But
I'll start with a little tidbit story. When my ex-husband was leaving, like his final clean out, he got all this stuff out of the house because I kept the house. I wanted to keep the house for my kids. Um, I didn't want to upset their universe. That was like the main thing. And I remember he handed me a little tool belt and it had little pink tools and they were like Lego tools or something. I don't even, they were like BS tools. The hammer could barely hammer. He handed it and he said to me, you know, good luck, I think. Good luck to you, knowing that I had an unparalleled cluelessness about the basic upkeep of a house. I'm talking about knowing where the water shutoff valve is, knowing, how to shut off the electricity in a hurry. And like, I never did any of that. I didn't even know how to plunge the toilet the right way. I mean, I sound like a diva, but I really didn't. I would always have him do it. But I mean, just with the house stuff, I've become more empowered. Yeah, I can kind of DIY a lot of stuff now. Just with that, I feel empowered. I also feel empowered with obviously being able to handle the personal financial stuff because I had to. I was thrown in it. And I learned the hard way. One of the first things I had to do out of our divorce was turn in my leased car and get a new car. And I completely screwed it up. I gave away all leverage the moment I walked in the dealership. The guy asked me, what do you want in a monthly payment? And I told him. And I only learned
Mm.
later that you're not supposed to do that because they can totally take advantage of you.
And how do
So
they take advantage of you? I really would like to know because if you say I can only spend 400 a month, how are they taking advantage of me when I know I can pay 400, you make it 400, then I'm good.
because they play with the amount of the car based on they take out their little calculators and they figure out a way to make that monthly payment happen for you, but completely elevating the cost of the car in the end. So
So,
and also the financing of the car. Don't walk into a car dealership without having your own financing in hand, meaning like having a loan that you've already are able to take out at an interest rate and comparing it to what you would get through the financing at the car dealer, which I didn't know that either. He said, "Oh no, you can only finance here in the car." I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll only get the financing at the car dealership." Well, that interest rate was through the roof. I didn't even have the concept of getting financing before I walked in. Like this is
so,
really sad, but true. We were
so
not taught this stuff in school.
no, I know. That's the problem. So then, okay, so now when you talk about they inflate the price of the car, does that mean that my $400 a month is now going to be spread over 3 years rather than 2 years, and then that's why it's going to be cost more, or what?
They play with the number based on, yeah, there's the duration. I don't know. So to be quite honest, I don't know how they do, but I know they do. I interviewed several former car salesmen for the chapter I wrote on that. And do not tell them how much you want in a monthly payment. Say, all I want to know is the out the door number. You want to know how much the total car costs. Forget about the fees. The car salesmen want to make buying a car really complicated because they just want you to go,
Mhm.
oh, all right, I'll just take it. I mean, they do car sales every day. We do it not so much. So they're more
Yeah.
skilled at it than us. So they take advantage of that.
That's why I like Tesla. They had zero APR and they make
Mm.
it so easy. And you're like, okay, done.
There's another commercial. You just
I
did it.
mean, seriously, I was
Yeah.
like, Kevin, why would we buy a car that's going to charge us interest when they offer these for none and they're super easy and amazing? And so that was why we went Tesla.
That
But
sounds like a dream, by the way.
what would you say? Like, I'd be curious to know how your finances changed. Like, when you got empowered because you had to, how did your finances change?
Um, I actually wound up doing better. My husband was a little more conservative than me, and not to say that everybody should take risks. This is just me. I really got involved with putting money into my investments very regularly. That compounding really helped. And I invested in stuff that he wouldn't have invested in and didn't invest in. So, and not to say, once again, there's risk with all investments. I just want to point that out. And what
Hmm.
I did isn't necessarily the rule, but you know, I wanted to try different things and I didn't, and thank God it worked in my favor.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to say that it worked in your favor. Um, and that's the case. Like when you sit with a financial advisor, they're going to tell you like what can you sleep at night with, right? Like are you someone who wants to go totally safe? Like are you going bonds or are you going super risky? Like where are you going to be in that spectrum? And so the fact that you were able to take a few more risks maybe than him definitely helps you, in the longer run. Not that everybody, wants to do that.
Right, yeah, and diversification is key. I mean, you want a mix of stocks and bonds, and I'm all for index funds
Hmm.
because you can buy more diversification in one fell swoop. And a lot of times those ETFs can give dividends, which I actually reinvest. I don't take the dividend money out. It's your choice, though. It's something that you can, if you do your own investing on, let's say, a Fidelity or something, you can say whether you want that dividend money reinvested and to buy more shares. Fractional investing is also great. Everybody thinks, and this is how I thought that if the share is, let's say, $400, that I had to have that $400 before I can invest it in that fund or that stock. No, now they have fractional investing, which they didn't have when I was a kid. So this is new for someone like me,
I've
or
never even
was
heard of
new.
that.
You haven't? Okay, so this
Mm-mm.
is great. So, and not all not all investment platforms have it. Like I know Bank of America, Merrill Lynch does not have fractional investing, but someplace like Fidelity does. And they don't make it. Here's the funny thing: Fidelity doesn't even make it easy to find. Like it's a drop down box, and so you can fractionally invest. So if let's say the share is $400 and you only have $100, you can put in $100 and you'll buy $100 of, let's say, that index fund, and it will still earn a bit of a dividend. It will still be a fractional share that continues to compound. So yeah, I'm all for fractional investing as well.
Wow. And then there was one other thing that I read in the book that I loved that is off topic from this, but goes back to what do you do when you've been laid off? You talk about a
Mm.
brag folder. Will you share with everybody what the brag folder is?
So this comes from, I used to always, when I used to do a really good live shot at CNN, I would jot it down and try to grab it later, and then I would forget where it is and never really have a record of it. And I guess this is a plug. There's an app called Pep Talk Her, and you can go on and it has the calendar and you just pop in what you did that day and something, if you did something great that day, you would put that in there and maybe write down what it was and then come back to it another time. But a lot of us can't remember what we had for dinner last week. How are we going to be able to talk confidently about what we've accomplished in our jobs? So when we go to get that raise, we can talk about the stuff that we've done that is exemplary. And if we don't remember it, the best way to remember it is to keep a brag folder. So if it is easier for you to write it down, write it down. If you want to put it in an app, put it in an app. But keep tabs and keep score of yourself so you can better sell yourself when you're trying to get a new job, get a raise, get a promotion.
That is amazing. Pep talk her because it is hard to figure out where you're going to store all this stuff. And if that's an easy app to be able to
Yeah.
keep track of, oh my gosh, today this thing I did at work yielded this result, then you can have those all stacked up. Like I always admired people, like my friend Marcy was like really good at this at NBC. She would keep her, basically it was her brag folder, wasn't named that. And then she would go in and she would say, here's what I've accomplished, here's what I've done. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't remember a quarter of the shit that I've done. I'm just like, and then you're a turtle on your back trying to remember and write it down. And I don't like to I never wanted it to be tit for tat. I wanted to be like, here, I'm crushing it. Now, you do the right thing, but nobody does the right thing
No,
unless they're
you have to
forced to.
they want to hear the proof. Here's the proof. Here are the things I did. Well, last year I did this, this, and this during the months of this, and I brought in this
Mhm.
much money or whatever that sort of thing is that your company uses to decide whether or not
Metrics.
that yes, whatever metric it is that you could be kicking ass at.
Yeah, no, it makes sense because as an employer, it is so easy for me to forget all of the good stuff because generally we're looking at the things that need to get better. And so it's helpful for me as an employer when somebody says, like, hey, remember I did this, this, and this. And you're like, oh, shit, I didn't even remember that. And not because I'm trying to be, you know, whatever. It's just, you just don't remember that stuff sometimes. So it is really
Yeah.
important to be able to share. But I'm going to check out Pep Talk Her. I think that's a really, really cool idea.
Yeah.
But
It's easy to
also
use.
just for yourself too, and your personal victories. I think it would be really helpful because I remember even in my career, my husband would always say, Maria, you haven't even absorbed what you've accomplished because you've been such a tornado, just going, 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 going. So he made me frame a lot of key big moments and things on my walls
I
because
love
I
that.
never wanted to put myself up on the walls. I was like, oh my God, it doesn't feel right. Like I don't like it. I know that there are some celebrities I've been to their homes and they've got everything on their walls. And I was like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with that. That's not me. And so he forced me and we put stuff
Mhm.
up and I would look at this stuff and be like, I can't even remember I did that. Oh my, I did that too. Oh my God. So what I like about this app idea is for women to be able to not just for business but for personal, like, you know
Yeah.
what, I created a boundary today and I was able to hold it with this person and I'm really proud of myself. Or you know what, I have quit smoking and this is my day 10. I'm really I'm really doing it. It's hard but I'm doing it, or whatever it is. I think that's really cool accountability and also a cool report for yourself to look back on. I like that.
Yeah, great way to document our wins and make us feel
Yeah.
better if we're feeling down one day to go back and look. I've really accomplished a lot.
Yeah. Last thing, I'm curious about what happened with you after CNN. Where have you been at in that rebuild phase in your career? Obviously, you've written this book too.
Yeah, I've been freelancing at ABC News, not a lot, but freelancing there, which has been fun. I love it there. And talk about a blessing in disguise. I shouldn't really call it that. One door closes, one door opens, maybe. I mean, I used the time because right when I was laid off, I literally signed a book deal 2 weeks before. So I used the time where I had the severance to write my book and to freelance at ABC News. I'm doing some other freelance things. At some point, I'm going to have to start looking for a full-time job. I know that. So that is coming down the pike. But I haven't really been looking for a job. But I think I'm going to have to start really
Got it.
getting in there and looking for something full-time.
Very cool. Well, I'm sure you'll do a lot of speaking stuff
Thank
as well
you.
with this book.
Oh,
And you have a really relatable story. And you are very relatable for the every woman to connect with and be like, okay, I hate that I have to do all this shit, but I'm gonna do it step by step and maybe take everything else and said today, guys, and make the list and think about that Heal Squad member who I told you guys in our Patreon, our monthly Patreon, said she had monthly goals. Now, Kevin and I never really quite got to our monthly goals. I'm really bummed about it as I'm looking at our chart of everything we want to do this year. Um, I will get to it at some point, but maybe you create a monthly goal where it's like, this month I'm going to focus on our insurances and get that done. Next month, I'm going to focus on my estate planning. Okay, get that done. Next month, I'm going to focus. If you piece it out throughout the year, by the end of the year, you could have all of this stuff in order and go into next year being like, damn, I'm good. I can sit back now and I can have a margarita.
that's a great way to manage it. I like your advice very much. Yeah, because it that was the main thing. It was everything all at once, and oh my God, it's so overwhelming. But if you piece it apart like that, if you do little bits at a time, and then
Hmm.
you actually do those transactions, make those transactions, you're going to gain that confidence over time.
Yeah. We'll call it the monthly takeover goals.
I like that.
I love this. Well, Allison, thank you so much
Oh, my pleasure.
for coming on and for sharing. And I hope you guys enjoyed our two-part conversation. Be sure, of course, to grab her upcoming book, What's Up with Women and Money, available March 4th. And as always, if you guys enjoyed our chat or if you found any value in this, please share it with a friend, help spread the word. In the meantime, be nice people, make good choices, and be present. And if you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and episode. Healing is possible, friends, and it happens here. Hey, Heal Squad. We have been on quite the journey together, and we're hearing from so many of you just how much this show is helping you heal and get better, and it makes us feel so good. We love, love, love it, and we just ask that you don't keep it to yourself. Spread the message and share the show or your favorite episode with your friends. And if you want to help us even more, you can leave us a 5-star rating and a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at Heal Squad. You can also DM us anytime because we love connecting with you. And finally, you can also join us on Patreon for our monthly live heal events with world-class healers and ad-free episodes exclusive only to Patreon and our Super Heal Squad for as little as $10 a month. So go to patreon.com/Heal Squad to join. Getting better isn't easy, friends, but as I say all the time, it's a whole lot easier if we can do it together. We love you all so much, and we love doing this thing called life with you.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or mariamenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.